Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Hello, everybody. I don't know if you can hear me or if you're even there. I don't know if you would listen to the Brent Dodge here. Yes, I know it's Wednesday, so I should now speak to you. We are talking all about things, and we would like for you to join us too. Hola, friend Eric. How are you? Hopefully you're well and don't have the flu. Da-da-da-da-da. So how's everyone doing? You guys doing well? Hopefully everyone's doing good. We are coming to you guys live from my condo. Yay! Tonight we're going to be talking all about different Disney tours that you can take around the Walt Disney World property, along with a few other tours we're going to talk a little bit about as well. We'll give it a few seconds here, for a minute or two here, to let people come on. In the meantime, I hope everyone out there is doing great tonight for this Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Hello. I'm trying to think of greetings from Orlando. Hello, Orlando. Hello, Orlando. I'm currently also in Orlando. Sitting in Orlando. My address is an Orlando address. Even though technically I'm in Orlando, but I'm technically also in Lake Buena Vista, but also in I could probably fit into like 4 different categories because I'm like right on the corner of everything, which is also weird because if you go further east from here, from where I'm currently sitting, if you go, hello Thomas, how you doing, buddy? If you go east from here, you'll hit like 3 other cities or towns before you hit Orlando. But I still have an Orlando address, so it's all kind of confusing, but that's okay. So yeah, tonight we're gonna be talking all about different Disney tours. If you guys were following me on Instagram, I did post a little bit about the Keys to the Kingdom tour. I did that one yesterday for the first time in ages, and I decided today's going to be a perfect day to kind of sit back and talk about the different Disney tours that are available all around the Walt Disney World Resort. I've done the majority of them, but I've not done all of them. So tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about the ones that I've done, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about the other ones that I have not done. So before we get into that, let's start off the party here. We're going to start the 556th episode of the Wednesday show in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 565th episode of the 56th episode of the Wednesday show. Today is March 16th, 2022. I'm your host, as always, Brent Dodge. Hello. Today, we're going to be doing a talk about all of the different Disney tours found throughout the Walt Disney World property, plus a few extra ones in addition to that. But of course, before we get to that, let's talk about our news for the week. First off, thank you everyone who's been joining us for our Saturday in the Park. You didn't already know, every single Saturday right here on this channel, we do a live broadcast from someplace found throughout the Walt Disney World Resort. This past Saturday, we came to you guys live from Kilimanjaro Safaris, and next week, who knows where we're going to be. Just make sure you join us every single Saturday right here on this channel, if you're on the Community Facebook page. Also, if you're on our YouTube channel, and if you're not on the YouTube channel, you should go check out the YouTube channel, because every single day we are doing a brand new video about something or another about the Disney World property. Today we did a video about Progress City found over at Tomorrowland, and you never know what tomorrow's going to be. I do, because I already recorded it. But yeah, every single day we're giving you different Disney details. We're doing take 5s around the park where you can just get relaxed for 5 minutes. Different ride-throughs, and of course, my personal favorite, pop-up facts. So make sure you join us every single day right on my YouTube channel to get your daily dose of Disney. It's always a lot of fun. So make sure you join us every single day. And of course, as always, tonight's show is sponsored by It's All About the Mouse Travel. Make sure you stop by it'sallaboutthemousetravel.com for all of your Disney travel needs. All their services are absolutely, positively, 100% free. So make sure you book with them for your next Disney vacation. All right. So let's get this party started. Let's start off with the obvious question. How many people out there, show of hands, how many people out there have done a Disney tour in some capacity? It doesn't have to be the Keys of the Kingdom tour, which is the one that I did yesterday, but have you ever done any of the Disney tours at all? I would love to know how many people out there before we kind of get into this, so then we can have an idea of what we're going to be talking about, or what path we should be going on, so you guys get a full comprehension of the different Disney tours. So there are several different Disney tours on property. There's the Keys of the Kingdom tour, which is one of my favorites. Eric's done the Keys of the Kingdom. Sarah, Keys of the Kingdom. I've done the Keys in the Backstage Safari tour at Animal Kingdom. Hey, leaving you on while doing stuff. Enjoy your stuff. Thumbs up for that. Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool tours around the Disney property. And Trisha's done some. Yeah, everyone's done a tour, which is kind of cool. I was thinking that we would have a bunch of people who are like, I've never done a tour before. So yeah, there's a lot of different tours. The different tours can take you pretty much backstage and give you unique different details about different aspects all around Walt Disney World. So before we get into it, let's talk a little bit about some of the tours that we can get into. DCL tour, that's one of the ones that we're going to actually be talking about because I love the DCL tour. I really want to do the trains one. The trains one is probably my favorite tour that Disney has done, that I've personally done yet. I did a hard hat tour of Disneyland California Adventure while it was under construction. You win. Joanne wins. That is the coolest thing ever. A hard hat tour of Disney California Adventure. Oh my gosh. That would be so cool. If I could turn back time. We did the Caring for Giants tour at Animal Kingdom last month. Okay, so fun fact, I was signed up for the Caring for Giants tour and it got canceled because of COVID. So, hey. That's one of the tours that I've not done yet. Caring for Giants tour is a tour about the elephants found over at Animal Kingdom. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to kind of go about talking about these tours. And I got the list of all the tours here in front of me, so I can kind of, let's start off with Keys of the Kingdom, because that's the tour I did yesterday, so it's the freshest one in my mind, and then we'll kind of go from there. So first off, has anyone done the Keys of the Kingdom? I saw Eric did it, and Sarah did it. Anyone else has done the Keys of the Kingdom tour? So the Keys of the Kingdom tour starts off at Magic Kingdom. I think there are 3 different times where people go out. We had the 9:30 I highly recommend the 9:30 because of something that we got to experience that I've never experienced before on the Keys of the Kingdom tour. And they also said that if you are part of any of the other tour groups, you do not get to experience this either because it is such a unique time slot, and we're going to get into why. So the Keys of the Kingdom tour, you get your badge there, which that's just a label on there with my name on there. But this is the Disney Keys of the Kingdom. When you check in over at Tony's Town Square Restaurant, and the tour takes you down Main Street, USA, through Adventureland, through Frontierland, into Liberty Square, through Fantasyland, and then down into the Utilidors. Before we get into that, one of the big questions that I've had a lot of people ask me about over on Instagram today is, did you learn anything new? I did. I learned 2 brand new facts, which 2 brand new facts does not seem like a lot, and it's not a lot. The majority of the stuff they were talking about, I was like, I already knew this. However, it was such a great way to spend the day at the park that was very unique and different from what you usually do. So for me to do this tour, I was going back and forth about 2 years ago about whether or not I want to do this tour again, mainly due to the fact that I knew everything that they were going to mainly be talking about. Like I said, there are 2 new fun facts that I learned on this tour, and we'll get to on what they are because I was pleasantly surprised with the fun facts. I was like, oh, something new. But I learned 2 new things. But it was also a great way to go through the park, and also to have it so you had. It was nice for me to be like reconfirmed, like, oh, okay, I do know that I do know what I've been talking about all these years. So you start on Main Street USA, you go down Main Street, you go down Center Street, and while you're on Center Street, they talk a little bit about the history of the park, about the construction of the park, about how they bought all the land property, and then you continue going down Main Street USA. You get to the hub. They talk a little bit about the partner statue, about the castle, and then you make your way over into Adventureland, where you have your first ever bathroom stop. While you go through Adventureland, eventually you get into the Jungle Cruise, and when you actually go on the Jungle Cruise, they take you through the exit. And when you go on the Jungle Cruise, one of the cool things about this was the way that they did this attraction. So you got onto the Jungle Cruise and you loaded at the exit, and they took you to the main dock where the people would actually usually enter. But of course, it's a private tour, so they didn't let anyone else on. When you got to that dock, the skipper handed the microphone back over to your tour guide. And when they gave it to the tour guide, it literally became a 15-minute or 10-minute or however long the ride is journey around the Jungle Cruise. And they just talked about the history of the Jungle Cruise. And they talked about fun facts about the Jungle Cruise. And they pointed out different details in the Jungle Cruise. On this tour around Jungle Cruise, this was where I learned one of my fun facts. Everything they were talking about, I was like, okay, I've heard this before. Really cool, though, to kind of like sit on the Jungle Cruise and have an actual Disney tour guide go through and talk about these different fun facts. Really cool experience to actually be able to do that. I thought it was a fun, unique way to do an attraction that you've done hundreds of times before and go on that same attraction, but have it so it's completely different than what you've ever done before. Now, instead of having it so someone's going through and actually telling you different fun facts and the history about that attraction, it made me want to have it so I start doing tours where I just go on rides with people and tell them history and fun facts while we're on the attractions and completely ignore the storyline that's actually going on, because it was such a fun, unique thing. Now, the first fun fact that I learned on this entire trip out of my two new things, I never knew that with the new show scene where you have the monkeys in the boat, the monkeys are fighting over a map, or they're holding onto a map. The map is actually the map of the Jungle Cruise over in Disneyland. While over at Disneyland, the map that the monkeys are holding is a map of the Jungle Cruise at Walt Disney World. Never knew that fun fact before. So that was really exciting for me to have a brand new fun fact kind of thrown my way. So after the Jungle Cruise, we continued making our way through Adventureland and made our way into Frontierland. You went past Splash Mountain and Big Thunder Mountain, and you went by the restrooms towards the bottom of Splash Mountain into the exit. And this is where we had our second, that's right, bathroom stop. After you use the bathroom, you go backstage for the first time. Now, you go backstage 2 different times on this tour. This was the first time that we actually would go backstage on the tour. The first stop backstage took you, if you've ever done any of the Run Disney races, or if you've ever watched any of my Run Disney race footage, you've probably seen this backstage area because it's right around mile 6 during the half marathon in January, the half marathon in February, or it's also part of the marathon in January as well. So you go backstage, and this is where the unique part of the tour was that is not shown at any of the other tours. So if you have the 930 tour, this is something you get to experience and no one else gets to experience. So if you're on the other tours, you get to go backstage and you get to see where they keep the parade floats, and you get to see the parade floats behind the scenes. At the 930 tour, however, we were back there right around 11:15. At 11:15, they were getting ready for the parade. Wait, did I say 11:15? 10:15. 10:15? 11:15. The parade was at noon. So 11:15, we were backstage and they're getting the parade floats ready. While we were back there, we got to see them like loading the cast members actually onto like the floats and stuff, like with a cherry picker. And then on top of that, we got to sit back there and watch the Maleficent parade float actually like breathing fire and like being tested out before they would actually send it out. We were back there for probably about 15 to 20 minutes watching all this happen. It was so cool. It was so unique. And the tour guide was even kind of blown away too. She was like, you never really see this unless you're part of the 930 tour group, because now they have the 12 o'clock parade. Before this, the parade would never actually go on until 3 o'clock. What comes the 3 o'clock parade? You know, that question. But because that was the old question, now we don't really have we have a 3 o'clock parade, but now they're doing 2 parades right now. Because of that, perspective, we actually got to be able to watch them prepare the parade. Something I've never seen happen before. It was really cool because we were watching the second to last float where they have like the girls that are up in the swings, and we actually got to watch them like put the girls in the swings. The other thing was kind of that was kind of crazy is usually when you're watching the parades, you're thinking, okay, like, the cast members are out there for a good 27 minutes on the parade route, and then that's about it. But these girls were being put up at 11:30, so that means they're sitting up in that chair from 11:30 till about 12:30 before they actually get taken down. So they're actually just sitting up those chairs for like a good hour. Kind of blew my mind. Really, really cool. In addition to that, or after that, then we continued on our way. You walked right past the electric water pageant floats, which I've seen from the monorail before, but I've never actually seen it like right next to you, which was really cool to do. Also, in addition to that, I do right up there on the shelf, I actually have one of the electric water pageant bulbs that I got from a D23 event back in 2010. I still have the bulb to this day. It's right there. Anyways, well, it's in a bag. I've kept it in the bag all these years, and I'll take it out every now and then. Like, ooh, this was part of the electric water pageant. Anyways, you would continue going on, and you would walk all the way around Pirates of the Caribbean and eventually make your way back into the park over by Pirates of the Caribbean. When you got into the park, we made our way over to Pecos Bill, and that was where we had our lunch. If you ever do the tour, you actually have lunch included. So before you actually go, you get to choose what you want to eat for lunch that day. I chose the chicken tacos, and I had chicken tacos, and it was delicious. Amazingly enough, a week before, not even a week before, my parents have been in for like the last 5 weeks. They just left this morning. But my mom was like, I've never eaten at Pecos Bill before. So we ate at Pecos Bill literally like 4 or 5 days before. And then we ended up at Pecos Bill for this tour, which I thought was kind of funny. After that, we continued going down Main Street, not down Frontierland into Liberty Square. When we went to Liberty Square, they went through and talked a lot about different fun facts, including the Haunted Mansion. And then we actually rode the Haunted Mansion. After we got off the Haunted Mansion, we went through Fantasyland until we got over to a backstage door. Now, this is the part of the tour that really, for me, was like the coolest part in the world. And it wasn't the fact that we got to go to the Utilidors. If you guys know anything about me, you probably know that I did the college program years and years and years and years and years ago, back in 2004. So 18 years ago, I was on the Walt Disney World College program. Holy cow, I'm getting old. I was on the Walt Disney World College program. And on that college program, I worked Magic Kingdom custodial in Fantasyland specifically. When we did this tour yesterday, it was a little bit more backstory because I need to make sure you understand how amazing this was in my mind. After I finished my college program, I came back and I worked for Disney one summer only in 2005. So I really hadn't been in the Utilidor since 2005. So it's been 17 years since I've been down there. And that was the other thing that was really making me hesitant about taking this tour. My parents really wanted to take the tour because they've never been down there. And they're like, oh, it would be so cool to go down to the Utilidors. And for me, I was like, I would like to go down there again. But at the same time, I had this memory of them that's so vivid. Like it was such a huge part of my life for a whole year, being down in those tunnels. And I didn't really want to taint that perfect image in my head, even though the Utilidors are far from perfect. But I didn't really want to go down there again because I was like, I have this idea of what they are, and I just don't, when you have a memory, you don't really want to taint that memory. So I was going back and forth a few years ago, and then I kind of said, okay, let's do it together at some point. And then we got the tour, and we went into the same backstage door that I used to enter on stage as a cast member back in 2004. And that made, I was telling my parents when we were going up, I was like, this is where I used to enter on stage. This is where I used to get my work assignment. So we went in there. On the right-hand side is where I used to actually be like, oh, this is what I'm in charge of today as a custodian at Magic Kingdom. And it was so that, just walking into that door again for the first time in 17 years, really cool experience. Really cool just being able to go into that door again. Then we went down into the Utilidors. And when we went down in the Utilidors, we were in the tunnels, obviously under Fantasyland, because that's where we entered into. And we went over kind of near the Musketeria, but not really near the Musketeria. But we went over, and when I did my college program, cell phones were a thing, but not everyone had them. It wasn't like now. And so I would talk to my parents about once a week, and I would call them with a phone card, and I would call them from a specific cell phone every single, like once a week, from the same phone. It's the same phone, and it's down in the utilidors. And we were walking by, and I was like, that's where the phone is. Like, the phone's right there. So it was really cool to kind of be there with my parents. And I had a memory of a phone, and to actually see, the phone again with my parents was like just such a cool experience, to just be able to see where I would sit 17 years ago and talk to my parents. And like, that was just, it blew my mind. Hey, Robert, how you doing? So after we saw that area, then you went down the main tunnel of the utilidors, and we made our way underneath the castle to Main Street USA. And when we got to Main Street USA, another cool thing, we went to custodial base, which is where I used to have to clock in every day. And so we saw that. I was freaking out more about showing my parents things that I had done 17 years ago. I wonder if the phone remembers you. It probably does. I would imagine so. There was a water fountain where it was, but yeah, I got to see where I clocked in 17 years ago, and I was like, that's where I used to clock in. And then you could kind of look down a hallway and you could see the lockers where we used to keep our pan and brooms. I was like, that's where I kept my pan and broom at night. I would tuck it in every single night there. So you would go around there, and then you would kind of, they took us like this other area. And when I was on my college program, because I'm me and I'm a nerd, I used to explore the tunnels. Like, after work, I'd be like, oh, well, I'm just going to take a longer way to get to the exit, because why not? And they had a few new things down there that I had never seen before. They had like this display of different things from the past of Disney. So you can see like the automatronics of one of the tiki birds. You could see, they had one of the little medallions from the castle for the 50th anniversary. That was down there. And they had all these different things for us to kind of look at, which to me was like really cool, because they didn't have that on my college program. So to walk around there and check that out, really cool experience. After going through the utilidors, then we went up at Main Street USA, and we finished our tour up there. In addition to that, in addition to the food and everything else, when you sat down for lunch, they also had this little booklet here. Well, not a little booklet. It lifts up, and then inside you have the Disney's Keys to the Kingdom pin there as well, which I think is a very nifty little pin. So that was the Keys to the Kingdom tour. That is one of many different tours that Disney does. If anyone has any questions while we're going through here, keep throwing the questions to the chat room, and we will continue to go through them. Now, like I said, I had done several of the different tours around Walt Disney World property, so let's talk about another one. Let's talk about the one that I've probably done the most amount of times. Oh, wait, here we go. I'll never forget going backstage for the first time and seeing friends of Tweedledee and Tweedledum with a Scarmere for life. And that's the thing about the backstage tours is, for this one, I think you have to be 15 or 16 years old to do it, because of things like that. Because you see things that could ruin the magic for some people. It's like, I remember when I did my college program. We went through, and they kind of talked a little bit about, okay, hopefully this doesn't ruin the magic for you. But it was really funny, because we saw a person who's friends with Mickey on the float where Mickey's going to be, and that person was like waving, and everyone's like, Mickey's waving at us, even though Mickey was nowhere to be found at that point. So it was really cool to be able to do that. I enjoyed being backstage with Disney Institute. I just think there's something cool about being backstage, and I've been backstage of all four parks, right? Yeah, all four parks at some point or another, whether it was on my college program days or afterwards. I've been backstage at all four parks at one time or another, and I think it's one of those things that, for some cast members, I think it's probably lost on them because they're back there all the time, and for them, it's just like, okay. But then you have other people who it's like for me, I remember on my college program, there were some days I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm in the tunnels right now. Or there was one time where because the bus would drop you off at a different spot than where the guest would drop you off. And at studios, I remember one time it dropped us off and we got lost backstage trying to find on stage to get into the park to play. And at that point, it would drop you off behind Indiana Jones. And I remember us like stumbling onto the stage of Indiana Jones. We're like, oh my gosh, how did we get here? So I think it's to me, I don't think the magic's taken away by doing backstage tours. I actually think it enhances it a whole lot more because I just think it's such a cool experience to be able to do these things and to see these things. When will we do the Epcot one? I'll do the Epcot one whenever you guys want to do that. I'm always good with that, any tour. I would love to swim the dolphins. Is it still available? I think it is not available yet, but I think it's coming back in the very near future. Yeah, it's still unavailable. I'm on the tour website, so I don't forget any tours. Okay, Backstage Magic, which is a Epcot tour. That one's temporarily unavailable. That is one of the ones that I've not done, so we're not going to really go on and talk about it. Learn how to operate Maelstrom? That's cool. That's really cool. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the one I've done the most amount of times is the Behind the Seats tour. Behind the Seats tour is actually advertised several times while you're on Live in the Land. There's signs for it. They actually say it during the speech at the end. And then when you get off, there's a little sign saying take the Behind the Seats tour. Behind the Seats tour is probably the most affordable tour that Disney has. It's only like $12. It's an hour-long tour. It is currently not available. I will say that up front. It's currently not available, but if you ever get a chance to do it, it's about an hour tour, and they take you behind the scenes, aka behind the scenes, of Living with the Land. While you are there, you get to go through and you get to eat cucumbers. If you're a child, they give you ladybugs, or if you're a very eager adult, they'll give you ladybugs to let out into the plant area so they can go eat the different bugs that they're not supposed to have out there. And along the way, they kind of give you different garden tips and whatnot. I'm not a big food person. I'm not a big gardening person. I still find the tour interesting. It's not my favorite of the tours, even though it's not one of my favorite tours. I probably have done it like 10 times because I think it actually is a fun tour, and I do like doing behind the scenes stuff. And it's also fun to like wave at the people on the boats, be like, "Ha, we're over here and you're not." Let's continue here. We have Caring for Giants, which someone said out there. I've not done Caring for Giants yet. That is the tour about the elephant. I plan on going there. I was planning on going there before COVID hit, and then COVID hit. And unfortunately, my plans fell through. Let's take it to our next one, the Disney VIP tours. A Disney VIP tour I have had the chance to do mainly because I had friends that were kind to me. So the VIP tour is a private VIP tour. You get your own private tour guide for the day. Let's see how much it costs because it's expensive if it has it on here. It's not on here. But the VIP tour it's like $4,000 or $3,000 or some ridiculous amount of money that I personally could never do. However, my friend owns a business. They had a surplus, and as a surplus to get rid of the money, they decided to bring their staff members down to Walt Disney World and get a VIP tour. And when they did that, they had one spot still available because you can do up to 10 people. And they asked me if I wanted to join, and I said, of course I do. So the VIP tour guides are pretty much, it's a little bit different than doing just a regular tour because the regular tour has like a set schedule of this is what you're going to do. The VIP tour guides pretty much go through and they meet your needs. So if you want to do something specific, you tell them what they want to do and they make it happen. Now, to get you from park to park, they do have it so there's different minivans or vans that kind of take you from park to park, and they drop you off backstage. So it's a little bit easier for you to get from one park to another park. So when I did the tour with my friends, we actually started off at Disney Springs because they wanted to go to Earl's Sandwich. And I asked the tour guide, I was like, how many times have people who spent like $3,000 been like, hey, for lunch today, let's go to Earl's Sandwich? And they were like, hands down, one time. So my friends wanted to do Earl's Sandwich, and then we made our way over to Studios When we went to studios, they dropped us off behind Tower of Terror, and then after Tower of Terror, we went through and we did Tower of Terror, we did Toy Story Mania. They owned a theater production, so they wanted to see like behind the scenes stuff or like the special effects of Indiana Jones. So we sat front row of Indiana Jones, like they called ahead and said, "Hey, put aside, a seat for front row for this family." So we did that, and then we did Rock and Roller Coaster. Then we hopped in the van and went over to Magic Kingdom, where we did Space Mountain, Splash Mountain, all the mountains, and then a few other rides. And then that night was also a Halloween party night, and it was sold out. But because we were with the VIP tour guide, they were able to hook us up. I mean, we still had to pay for the Halloween party, but they were able to help like pull some strings to get us the tickets to the Halloween party. So the VIP tours, they seem very expensive, but at the same time, if you can pull off the money, if you can make the money work, it is a really cool experience to do at least once in your lifetime. I highly recommend trying it at least once in your lifetime. I've often thought about like if you could just get a few friends together, if you have 10 friends together and each one of you is willing to spend the $300 is still a lot of money, but it also makes a very unique day that you can go through and hit like all the massive attractions and pretty much skip all the lines. Now, there were a few times where we got stuck in line during those tours, and it took a little bit longer. I remember when we went on Rock and Roller Coaster, they took us through the Fast Pass line, but when we got into the studio, the line for Fast Pass was so backed up that it took us a lot longer to get through. And then the whole time, my friend who paid for it was like, "Next time, can we just go through the exit? I'm paying $3,000 here." But overall, a lot of fun to be able to do it at some point or another. Next one, Keys to the Kingdom. We just talked a lot about that. So let's go to the next tour, which is probably my favorite Disney tour on property. That is the Disney's Disney's The Magic Behind Our Steam Engines tour. Now, this is a tour that takes you on the steam engines at Magic Kingdom, and it takes you behind the scenes of Magic Kingdom, and you go to the roundhouse itself where these steam engines are taken. Again, you start over at Tony's Town Square restaurant. You don't actually eat there, but you start there, you check in there, and then they bring you up to the Main Street train station. Now, one thing that I should say about some of these tours is if you're doing the tours at like Magic Kingdom before the park opens, they actually have you park at Contemporary and then walk over because you're there before the park even opens. It also gives a very unique experience of seeing Main Street USA with no people on it and it also being light outside. So when you do that tour, you go up to Main Street USA. They have got one of the trains there, and they kind of give a history about the trains, and then you actually hop on the train, and they take you all the way through Frontierland to Fantasyland, and then they take that train and they actually back it up into the Roundhouse. When they back it up into the Roundhouse, you get to take a look kind of around the Roundhouse, but not really. You don't actually get to go inside the Roundhouse, but you get a look from the outside, and you also get a closer look at what the trains actually look like when you're literally putting your hand on the wheel. I actually have a picture someplace of me laying on the track like an old, like damsel in distress that a villain's like tied the person up on the track. I've got a picture of me laying on the track like the train's about to run me over. Very unique experience. The train tour goes through and they talk a huge history about each specific train, and they talk a little bit about how the trains are actually operating and how they work. And one of my favorite things about the trains or train fun facts is they were talking about how one of the train engines doesn't work very well, and another one of the train cars or the vehicles doesn't work very well. So if you look, one of the train engines is green, but one of the caboose for it is yellow. That's because they had to like swap out train cars and different things like that to have it so the best pieces were working together and the worst pieces are usually just backstage. Then after that, they took you again back into Magic Kingdom to the Fantasyland train station, and then to the Magic Kingdom train station, and that's where your tour would actually end, and the park would still not even be open yet. So, or maybe it had just opened. I think it had just opened by the time that we finished up. Overall, such a cool experience to be able to go through and see that. If it comes to different tours that I've taken at Walt Disney World where I've learned a lot, hands down, that is the one that I learned the most. Before that, I knew a lot about the trains, but after that tour, I knew more about the trains than I ever realized I could learn about the trains. And it's one of those tours I want to do again and again and again because I feel like there's a whole lot more to learn out there that I still don't really fathom about the things. Kind of different from, like I said, the Keys to the Kingdom tour. I learned 2 fun facts. I learned 2 things yesterday, but at the same time, I obviously, a lot of the stuff they talked about on the tours were in my books. But when it comes to the trains, I haven't done as much research about the trains as I have about other things around the Walt Disney World property. So for me, the train tour is probably one of the best tours for me personally to ever take. Next one up, someone mentioned it earlier, talking about the swimming with dolphins. They have the Aqua Tour. They also have the Dive Quest, and they also have the Dolphins in Depth. All of these different tours are tours that they take you through into the Seas Pavilion, and you can either snorkel, you can dive, or you can actually be swimming with the dolphins. I have not had the opportunity to do any of these 3 tours. However, I do know one of my friends does this tour. Literally, he does the scuba diving every time he goes to Epcot. Like literally every time he comes to. I did the college program with his wife, and I didn't even know the guy yet. And she's like, "Oh, you want to come over to the Seas Pavilion with me? Like, hang out with me." And the first time I ever met her husband was literally like her and I talking, and she's like, "There he is," and he's like scuba diving. Like, who's this guy with my wife? So that he absolutely loves it. He goes on and on about it every single time I talk to him. However, I've never actually done it. I'm not scuba certified. You do have to be scuba certified to do that one. The other ones are the snorkeling tour and the dolphin tour. You do not have to be scuba certified for those ones, but they are also extremely difficult to get into. In addition to that, we have tours like the Gardens of the World tour, which is temporarily unavailable. I've not done that one yet either. Savor the Savannah is a tour over at Animal Kingdom theme park where you actually go around and you get to try different tasty treats. Where was the other Animal Kingdom one that I want to talk about, though? Wild Africa Trek. Let's talk about the Wild Africa Trek because the Wild Africa Trek is probably my second favorite tour on property. Maybe my second favorite tour. So the Wild Africa Trek is like the behind the scenes of Kilimanjaro safaris, but not really behind the scenes, but kind of behind the scenes. If that makes sense at all, I don't know. But the Wild Africa Trek takes you start off over by the Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail. You walk through the Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail until about halfway through the tour, you veer off path over by the zebras and meerkats. You go off backstage and you are then in the woods and you make your way over by the hippo pool. Now, when you're by the hippo pool, you actually get to go right by the hippos, not like down by them, but you get to be like right above the hippos and actually watch the hippos as you feed them watermelon and lettuce and different foods like that. The Wild Africa Trek also takes you over the little rickety bridges that you can find while you're on Kilimanjaro safaris, and you go above the hippo pool and you also go above the crocodile pool until eventually you get your own private savannah truck and you go out into the savannah and you don't have to actually follow the same course that everyone else follows. Instead, there are several different times that you stop. Now, if you've ever seen these trucks out on the savannah, they are green, and if you ever see the foods trucks, they are green as well. This also gives a very unique perspective because a lot of the animals see your truck and they actually think that you're bringing them food and not the fact that you're just another bunch of guests who are ruining their day. So when you're on that thing, one of the coolest experiences I've ever had was when we went by the cheetahs. The cheetahs all stood up and they all started walking toward the truck thinking that we were bringing them food. Even though we weren't bringing them food, we were just watching them. But every time you got to some of the unique animals like the cheetahs, they would stand up and they would actually start walking towards you because they thought it was food coming instead of just a bunch of random guests. So that hands down is one of the most unique ideas ever. In addition to that, in the middle of the tour, you actually stop on the savannah and there's like a little hut out there and you eat food. I've done this tour, I think it's been 3 times now. I'm almost positive it's been 3 times. Every single time I've done it, it's been a very unique perspective because it is the safari. So every time you do it, it is a different safari, just like taking Kilimanjaro safaris is always going to be a different safari because every time you go on it, there are different animals that are around. In addition to that, when you are out there on the savannah eating your lunch, they also have it so you can like walk around. There's like a deck out there, and they have binoculars out there so you can actually look out at the different animals. I vividly remember being out there one time and you could see the lions off in the distance, but the lions were kind of walking around. So if it wasn't for the fact that we had more time to kind of watch the lions, it's rare to see the lions walking around. Usually they're sleeping. Sometimes they'll like move a few feet, but this time I actually got to watch the lions walk around, mainly due to the fact that I was on this special VIP tour. So it made it more of a unique experience for me. In addition to that, we also have an Up Close with Rhinos tour, which takes you down to the rhinos behind the scenes thing. You get to learn all about the different rhinos that are found on property. They also have the Undiscovered Future World tour. I did do this one. Now, this one, Alex, I don't know if she's still out there. Hi, Alex, if you are. Me, Alex, and Alex's wife, Ashley, the three of us went on this tour like 3 years ago, I want to say, in January. I want to say it was 2019. But we did the tour, and while we were doing the tour, at the start, we were kind of looking at each other. We said, are any of us going to learn anything on this tour? And we all learned something, I remember. But I also remember that it took a while before we're like, oh, haven't heard that one before. There was one fun fact that I learned on that tour. I had never put together the groundwork in front of the land pavilion was actually that sounds like a lovely tour with or cruise with, one of the two. The three of us, along with Brendan and his wife Alex, went on a cruise together. But the groundwork in front of the land pavilion is supposed to represent lava coming out because the land pavilion is supposed to be a volcano. I knew the volcano part, but I never realized the groundwork was supposed to be lava. And then I saw it and I was like, how did I never put these two together? But that was the tour that was the fun fact that I learned on that tour. But that tour takes you through and you go through and you see everything Future World. At that point, you started at Electric Umbrella. Obviously, Electric Umbrella is not there anymore. But they took you through by Spaceship Earth. Spaceship Earth we were supposed to ride, but Spaceship Earth was actually down the entire time around the tour. And then we went over and we did backstage of the Seas Pavilion. They actually take you into the old lounge that's over there, the sponsor lounge. And then we went to the Land Pavilion. They took you backstage there as well. I think we did Soarin' as well. Yeah, we did do Soarin'. And then we made our way to the Imagination Pavilion and then over towards Test Track and stuff, where we ended the tour backstage at like the costume pavilion. So overall, really, really cool tour. Not a lot of like really cool behind the scenes things, but it was really cool to go into that lounge over at the Seas Pavilion. If it was for that, I think the tour is worth it. If it's not for that, and it might be my least favorite of all the tours that they do. Okay, what are our other tours? World Showcase Destinations Tour. I did this back when I first started the Wednesday show. What? Yeah, back in 2009, we started the Wednesday show, September, or August of 2009, way back in the day. Has anyone watching since August 29, 2009? That's 13 years ago, almost 13 years ago. Back in August of 2009, we started the show, and in September, I came down here. I was still living in Wisconsin at the time. I came down here to do the Expedition Everest 5K. I started talking to a cast member. They started watching the Wednesday show, and then a few months later, I came down again and for a D23 event. And when I came down that time, the cast member that had become, friends with us said, "Hey, I'm a cast member, and I got discounted rates for this World Showcase Destinations Discovered Tour. Would you like to join me on this tour as a treat?" I was like, "Oh, yes, I would." So we did that tour. It was a pretty cool tour. You start off before the park opens again, and they take you all around all 11 countries at World Showcase, and they kind of go through and they point out different fun facts that can be found around World Showcase. They talk about the history of the pavilions. I vividly remember going to Italy, and they spent a lot of time talking about the architecture of the Italy pavilion, and they talked a lot about the architecture of the Morocco pavilion. Overall, it was a really cool tour, a really unique tour, and I would like to do it again, but like I said, it's been 13 years since I've done it. But the cool thing about it back then was it was a Segway tour, and that made it a lot more fun too, because you started off over at Innoventions. Remember when you used to be able to ride the Segways in Innoventions? Like you go down, go around a cone, and come back, and you would wait for like 20 minutes to do that. you did that, and then you actually started off there, and you actually did a Segway all around the park. It was a really cool experience, and I want to do it again at some point. I just don't know when. Right now, it is temporarily unavailable. And then a few of the other tours that I've not done is the Wilderness Back Trail Adventure. Goes through the history of it. That I've done a horseback riding trail, which is kind of a similar one. The horse trail that I did was not very educational. I did that when I first moved down here, and it was literally like, oh, if you look over here, there's an oak tree. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fun. But it wasn't that much fun. I enjoyed the horse riding aspect of it. I didn't realize that we were being told fun facts while we were on the horses, but we were told some fun facts, and there was only so much that we could actually do. The final tour that I can think of, or that I have on my list here, is the Marceline to Magic Kingdom tour. I have not done this tour. This is another one of those tours that I really wanted to do at one point, but right now it's just temporarily unavailable. So let's go to the chat room. How many people out there, one, have any questions? Does anyone have any questions about the tours? And two, any follow-up questions? Oh, and the other tour that we're going to talk about, the cruise line tour. So if you've ever done the Disney cruises, they do usually have tours on them. The tours are hands down one of my favorite things to do on the ship. However, when I went on the cruise back in November, they changed the tour because of COVID. They changed the tour from a tour to a sit down and learn about the ship thing, which was still interesting, but it wasn't as enlightening as it was when it was like an actual tour of the ship and you walked around. The tours of the cruise line ship is a lot of fun. I was actually just telling my dad the story yesterday about when I went on one of the cruises back, it was October, like 3 or 4 years ago. I was on the cruise and I went to a trivia contest. I won the trivia contest. Then I went to another trivia contest. I won that trivia contest. Then I went to another trivia contest and I won that trivia contest. And then the host, who had been the host of all three, came up to me afterwards, like, how on earth have you known all these like things? Like, this is ridiculous. And then I had to go through and be like, oh, like, I've written books about Disney and like I go to Disney every day and blah, 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 blah. I'm a nerd. And he was like, that makes more sense. Well, I did the cruise line tour, which I do every time I'm on the cruises. And he came up to me beforehand and was like, hey, just give me a heads up. There's going to be some times where this tour is going to be kind of awkward because I'm just going to be silent. I was like, oh, okay. That's cool. I don't understand why you're telling me. He's like, I'll talk more about it later on. So we're going through the tour, and there were times where it was like, you could tell that he wanted to say stuff, but he just didn't say stuff. And he was like, oh, does anyone have any questions while we're like walking to the next area? I'm like, no, that's not what usually happens at this part of the tour. And then he told me at the end that one of the rules that they have is you have to keep on talking. And he's like, well, sometimes the tour guides, like, we don't remember all the stuff in the script. So sometimes we just make stuff up, which, you know, kudos to my tour guide yesterday, because everything she said was factual, with the exception of the two things that I learned yesterday might not have been factual, but she fooled me because everything else was factual. So I'm sure that those two things that she told us were factual. Also, side note, the other fun fact that I learned, which I didn't know before, was up in the Cinderella Castle Suite. I've been up there before, but they've refurbed it. And she said since the refurb, they've actually hidden like Jacques and Gus and different characters like that around the suite, which when I was up there, they weren't up there. So that was something new to me that I was like, oh, I didn't know that one. So it was that and the map on the Jungle Cruise were the two things that I had never heard before. Anyways, so yeah, the tour guide, he was like, oh yeah, he's like, so we just make stuff up sometimes because we like forget what's part of that script and we kind of go through. And then a few days later, because it was a 7-day cruise, a few days later, I took the tour again because he told me, he's like, oh, it's not going to be me doing the tour. It's going to be someone else. Like, oh, great. Like, maybe I'll learn something new. And that guy was just spouting out false fact after false fact. I was like, none of this is true. And he, like, at the start, he's like, yeah, this is my first time on a Disney cruise. Like, or like, you know, like he said he'd been working on cruises for like 12 years, but he was doing his first contract with the Disney cruise. And he's like, I've been here for like 4 weeks. I know everything about cruises. And he talked about other cruise ships for a lot. And then he started talking about the Fantasy, which was we were on, and I was like, that's not true. He told me the Fantasy was the first trip that they had for Disney. I was like, it's the fourth trip. What are you talking about? So yeah, overall, besides that, great tours on the cruise ship. If you could make up a tour, what would the theme be, and where would you go? Ooh, well, I've actually hosted my own tours before. I actually have a side thing. It's on Facebook. I never really post about it or anything. I probably should get back into the tour game at some point. I stopped it, especially I started having people who were inquiring about tours in 2019, like at the end of 2019, saying, I got trips coming up in 2020. And I was like, oh, this is great. And then all of a sudden COVID happened, and all talk about tours kind of was halted. And also I didn't fully feel comfortable around strangers that I don't know, doing tours after the parks reopen. And I also figured some people probably aren't comfortable being around me, some random guy, when tours. But I've done a tour in every single one of the 4 parks that I've given, and I've also given tours at Disney Springs before. My favorite tour that I've given is Magic Kingdom. I really love doing Magic Kingdom tours. The only problem, the problem that I've had with it in the past is people aren't aware. They're like, oh, like I think they think I'm like a VIP tour guide. I'm like, I can't get you on the rides. Like I can go through and I can tell you fun facts. So it's mainly a walking thing. Like I had it planned out years ago really well, where it was literally a 4-hour tour walking through all the lands, talking about the history, fun facts, details, pointing out things that most people probably have never noticed before, etc., etc., etc. My least favorite tour I've ever given was Epcot. And I think part of it was the people who booked the tour had booked Magic Kingdom, Studios, Animal Kingdom, and Disney Springs. They're the only Disney Springs one I've ever done. And they said, let's do an Epcot tour. And I was like, okay. But when I do the Epcot tour, I usually kind of go through a lot of the history of the park, because there's the one thing you don't realize until you're actually doing a tour at Epcot, when you're like talking to people at Epcot about the history of Disney, is there's a lot of different spots. Like there's a long gap between Mission Space and Test Track. There's a longer gap between Test Track and Mexico. And to fill in that time, like I usually go through the history and fun facts and blah, 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 blah. Well, because we had covered that at Magic Kingdom, we had covered that at Studios, we had covered that at Animal Kingdom. By the time we got to Epcot, I was like, oh, I don't even know what to talk about during this space right now. And yeah, but yeah, Magic Kingdom's always been my favorite one I've done. My second favorite one that I've ever done is Animal Kingdom, because I don't think people are fully aware of all the different details that are found over at Disney's Animal Kingdom. And then, yeah, etc. Phil, I would book your tour. Yay! How can I book you? I guess so. I guess it's time to start getting the tours back, Hunter. Maybe. If people are interested, we'll start doing tours again. What's your price? I can't even remember what I charged. I honestly cannot remember. I want to say it was. Let's see. I've got it written down someplace. I've got it on the From Screen to Theme Facebook page, but it pops up on the side, and I don't think many people really paid attention to it. Let's see here. Where are you, From Screen to Theme Facebook page? There you are. So I used to do $50 for ages 16 and up, $30 for children ages 8 to 15, free for 0 to 7. March 25th. I will not be able to do March 25th because I will be working, because that's a Friday. So we would have to book further in advance. Yeah, so 4 hours. And then I'm trying to think. I used to have a minimum. I can't think of what the minimum was for on there. I have testimonies too. The last time I walked in the Magic Kingdom, I had no idea I was about to have a tour with Brent Dodge. My family went on the train, which is something we don't usually do. We then go to the front of the park, and Brent walks by with his From Screen to the Theme shirt. At that point in the day, I had thought we had just run into him like I was hoping to all week, but my parents surprised me with a tour. While we walked down Main Street, I knew it was a tour and was shocked at how much Brent pointed out that we never knew about. My family thought we knew it all, but we didn't know anything until that day. Brent kept going on with facts and just some of the basics that nobody really notices, from the buildings to the rides and the different colored sidewalks throughout the parks. That trip, I had started trying to find hidden Mickeys, and Brent kept pointing out more and more and more. I couldn't believe there were so many and how they all started. Aha, we talked about that too. He shared so many facts and where they are to me, and I just couldn't keep track. Brent really does know the most about anyone, but the most of anyone about Disney. That's right. Not March 26th. I always work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So those are the days I rarely ever do tours unless it was like far. Like my work schedule's out through May, so it would have to be May 1st or later if it was going to be a weekend one. On July 26th, 2010, that's the long review. My family and I took the When You Wish Upon a Tour. That's the name. It's a cute name, right? With Brent Dodge and the Magic Kingdom. This is our favorite theme park in Walt Disney World, and we have been there 40 plus times collectively. We thought we had seen it all. We thought we knew a lot about the parks, its attractions and shows, and of course, all the characters. Boy, were we wrong. Brent met us just inside the gates of the train station and began telling us all the fun facts that were right before our eyes, yet unseen by us for all these years. His wealth of knowledge is priceless, and the entertainment value of spending a few hours with him were well worth the price. I have never known anyone as informed as Brent. He knows secrets that even most cast members don't know. On this trip, I had my 68-year-old mother, my 4-year-old son, and my 16-year-old neighbor with me. This tour was shaped around us as a family. It was enjoyed by all. For my mom, the historical facts were interesting. For the 16-year-old, the fun facts were fascinating, especially those in and around the rides. And for the 4-year-old, the magic tricks and I forgot I did magic tricks for this one. And the Buzz Lightyear ride were the highlights. And for me, the best part was having a private guide to show us all the great time and a new perspective and familiar setting. So yeah, overall, it's been a long time since I've done the tours. Howdy. How do you ride the teacups? How are you doing today? But yeah, so it's been a long time since I've done the tours. I do want to get the tour started up again at some point. I was kind of thinking about Brent is the computer wore tennis shoes. The computer wore tennis shoes. 1969, right? Kurt Russell. Yeah, so I want to get the tour started again at some point. Just not sure exactly when we'll get the tours started again. I'm kind of thinking that if you're a Patreon pal and you are watching and you're coming to Disney sometime during a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, sometime in the near future, maybe you guys can be my is it 66? It was 66. I'm trying to think of what movie is 69 that I was thinking of. The Love Bug. Love Bug was 69. But you called me the computer wore tennis shoes. Then immediately I got my next fun fact wrong. But yeah, if you're one of my Patreon pals, you're down here at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, send me a message. I would love to give you a tour for free and have it so we can kind of do practice rounds to get back into the tour things. And if you're not a Patreon pal and you want a free tour on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, shoot me a message about how to become a Patreon pal. Love the original Love Bug. I love the original Love Bug too, so much that my car is actually Herbie the Love Bug. Fun fact. Most people out there know that, but I'm not sure if Ride the Teacups knows that. So that's why we're pointing out that fun fact. We got Herbie actually right here. Yeah, so any other questions about the tours before we wrap up here tonight? We'll give you guys a few more minutes to 66. Another Brother Bear moment where you were wrong. I haven't even looked at. We usually start off the show by pointing out how many subscribers we're at on YouTube and see if we can get more subscribers. We did not do that today. So we're currently at 1,422 subscribers here on YouTube. If we get up to 1,425 by 10:35, we'll go on for another 5-10 minutes. There's a lot more stuff. Actually, here, you want to see what's really cool behind me? My birthday is next week, and my mom gave me this. My mom loves to do needlework. So this will be going up behind. I'm trying to get it so the reflection's not in there. This will be going up on the wall behind me sometime in the near future. I just have to get the thing to place it up. But my mom actually did this as needlework here. As you can see, it says SUPERCALIFRAGISTICEXRIALIDOCIOUS. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. So very, very cool. Yeah, this is all hand sketched by my mother. But that's gonna be going up here sometime in the very near future as well. Isn't that cool? She said that she saw the pattern and it was like a box pattern, but she thought it'd be cooler if it was like this and go through all this stuff. So yeah, this is all cross stitch. Yeah. So my mom does really good cross stitch. Mom, if you're on there, good job, Mom. Yeah, my mom does cross stitch, and this is actually going to be my Christmas present. And then the frame that it came in had to be like special ordered, and when they came down here in December, it was not around, and then they were here this week. So this is someone's fault. My mom does so much cross stitch; it's insane how much cross stitch stuff she does. She does a ton of cross stitch. If you have a baby and she knows you, it's like, oh, let me make a blanket. It's every one of my cousins pretty much has a blanket that's from my mom from when they were born. So yeah, very cool, very, very cool. Someone spoiled. Did you talk about the off-road Segway tour? My son and I did that. It was so much fun. I also the Christmas decorations. I've never done either one of those. I've always wanted to do the off-road Segway tour, and I've always wanted to do the Christmas decorations tour. I talked to someone one time that they said they did the Christmas decorations tour when it was not the holiday season. I was like, what'd you do? Like, she would definitely get along with my mom's make. Yeah, my when they were down here for 5 weeks just now, and they just left this morning. And when they were down here, she does cross stitch all the time. Like that's her hobby. She likes doing cross stitch. She's always like I cannot remember a time in my life where she was not doing cross stitch. But I think that's pretty cool. And then she's also added stickers in there. It's like there's the UK flag, cup of tea, flower. What's that? Is that a? Oh, that's a bird. And then an umbrella. So different things that you can find that look like a whale from my angle, upside down like that. Oh, yeah. Any other questions before we wrap up here? Let's see if we got any new subscribers here in the last 5 minutes. See if we're going to go into extra innings. Maybe. It doesn't look like it. No. So sadly, it looks like that might be the end of our show tonight. Unless we have any other final questions going through here. I got one of the tiki birds. There's a lot of stuff like everywhere around here that you guys just never see. So I got the DuckTales mug. It always sits here. And we did an episode about the Enchanted Tiki Room like a year ago. And since then, this guy's always just sat right there. And I was just like sitting there and I was like stroking his hair like an evil villain. Thank you for joining us, guys. Okay, we did the off-road Segway tour. We took surf lessons to the Typhoon and we parasailed. That's the great thing about Walt Disney World too, is there's so many things to do and I just haven't done all of it. Oh, there we go. My mom was watching. There. Mom, did you see that? Did you see that we were showing your thing off? Yay. All right, so we are going to wrap up the show right here. As always, just a reminder, tonight's show is sponsored by It's All About the Mouse Travel. Make sure you stop by It's All About the Mousetravel.com for all of your Disney travel needs. All of their services are absolutely, positively, 100% free. So make sure you book with them for your next Disney vacation. I'd like to thank everyone out there for joining us once again this week. Please keep on spreading the word about the Wednesday show and From Screen to Theme, and invite anyone and everyone to join the group right here on Facebook or over on YouTube as well. We are trying to hit 1,500 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the month. So if you know anyone at all who would be interested in subscribing on YouTube, make sure you send them the link. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you know anyone who would like the stuff that we post over on the From Screen to Theme Facebook page, send them an invite over there as well. Let's keep on building up this community every single day. Also, if nothing else, my birthday's next week. So, like, it could be a birthday present. Send people over. Please. Of course, if you have not already ordered your copy of A Closer Look Yet, or guess what? A Closer Look Yet, make sure you go visit the Shop Now buttons to order your books today, and I will send it out tomorrow. And of course, as always, remember that anything can happen if you let it. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Are they gone? Are they gone? Oh, good. My cheeks are just killing me. I can't stand this kind of pressure.